Classical 101.1 WRR FM and HD1 Dallas Fort Worth. It's time for the Classic Cafe. Interviews with arts leaders around the Metroplex and musical performances from the WRR Music Lounge. Brought to you by Metroplex Piano and the Crow Collection of Asian Art. Now from the DFW Mercedes-Benz Dealer Studios in historic Fair Park, here's your host, Nancy Brunson.
And welcome to the Classic Cafe on Classical 101.1 WRR. I'm Nancy Brunson. I'm your host. Coming up in just a minute or so, my next guest, and it's the Heavenly Harp right here on the Classic Cafe on Classical 101.1 WRR. Don't touch that dial.
Immerse yourself in the magical world of landscape miniature painter Brunson Sen at the Crow Collection of Asian Art in the Dallas Arts District through April 24th. The sizes of the paintings are only slightly larger than playing cards, yet in this limited space, Sen reveals infinite distances as well as lofty Himalayan snow peaks resplendent with the chromatic effects of sunset and sunrise. When told that he had immortalized the Himalayas during his lifetime, he said, "No, you are mistaken. The Himalayas themselves have immortalized me." Don't miss Time and Eternity, Landscape Paintings by Brunson Sen, curated by the esteemed Professor Emeritus of Art History at Punjab University, B.N. Goswami. Visit crowcollection.org for more information. Admission is free.
Welcome back to the Classic Cafe. My next guests are from the American Harp Society, the Dallas chapter. Well, kind of. But on Sunday, February 28th at 3 p.m., they had a recital with the second composer competition winners' pieces performed. And so I had an opportunity to talk to both the first prize winner and the honorable mention winner, and we're going to get to hear live performances of those two winning pieces as well. Up first is the first prize winner. She won for her composition Sketches for Harp. She's an Israeli composer named Nama Tamir, and she and I spoke by phone, and I asked her how this whole composition thing all got started.
Actually, yes, I started with piano at age 8, something like that. And I went to the high school to learn music and study music, sorry. And then actually a traumatic event leads me to composition. I broke my finger on gymnastic class just before my final recital. And I couldn't play for like half a year, and it was very traumatic. I mean, I studied composition a bit before, but I started doing it more seriously. Instead of the recital, I had to give the composition piece as a final exam in music. Then I just kept in this direction.
So, do you remember what was the first piece that you wrote?
The first serious piece during the school was for flute solo. But of course, when I was a kid, maybe 11 or something like that, I wrote a bit songs on the piano, and I thought I invent the whole tones scale. Yeah, I composed a piece that's based on this, and I was very excited and played it for my piano teacher, and she said, "Oh, but Debussy and Ravel did it before you."
What do you consider your main influences as a composer?
Well, I have a lot of kind of inspirations from classical to jazz to Israeli music. I try to combine all of these things in my music. And the main thing is that I try to write things that would be communicative for the audience, because sometimes modern music gets too noisy or too weird, too contemporary. So I try to write more melodic things or things that would touch.
Well, obviously, you touched the people at the American Harp Society in Dallas because you just won their second annual composer competition, writing a piece for the harp, but I understand that you don't play the harp and were not very familiar with the instrument.
I worked a lot on this piece with a harpist that studied with me at the academy, because I wanted to be very effective and try to do the best for harpists. And I didn't have the knowledge before.
Was it difficult to even conceive the piece without talking to a harpist first?
Yes, it was difficult because it's an instrument that more far. I mean, I had friends that studied with me, violinist and violist and cellist. So I always had this help, and I was more familiar with these instruments. But harp was something that I didn't know well, and I think it's more difficult to write for harp. It has more obstacles, more things you should think in advance when you write.
Let's talk a little bit about the piece. It's called Sketches for Harp. And I understand that it had some inspiration.
It's inspired by the graphic work of Escher, the painter. I mean, it's not a specific works of him. It's a source of inspiration, more general. The thing that I love in Escher's paintings, it's that we can see an object that merge into another object, and sometimes it completely became to a different thing, but it became through a progress. So it's more natural and stepwise, such as the famous paint of the fish and the birds. So in the painting, we look, of course, at the whole thing, and in music, which occurs on timeline, can understand it only retrospectively. Things like that gave me the inspiration and try to express these things in music.
I kind of know Escher's works because he was a graphic artist. Did you find sort of a correlation between lines and shapes with the instrument itself and how it's actually played?
Again, it was more the general inspiration, like the endless things. And for example, he had things like spirala or things like that. And so I try to express it on music with piano and crescendo and motions that keep going and going and going. Yeah, it was interesting to try to express the paintings through the music.
Well, here it is. The Sketches for Harp by Tamir, based on, or inspired by, I should say, the graphic work of M.C. Escher. And that was Sketches for Harp by Nama Tamir. And Nama won the first place in the American Harp Society Dallas chapter's composers competition. And they loved her so much, she's coming back next year to judge, I hear. The honorable mention winner was Cindy Horstman, a local harpist and composer who teaches harp at Collin College in Plano, Texas, and she's been performing, recording, writing, and arranging for the past 4 decades. And she has an interesting side to her harp playing that I'm going to let her tell you about.
When I moved to Dallas about 20 years ago, I started dabbling in jazz and met many musicians that were just so talented coming from North Texas and staying here. So that was a great opportunity for me to start dabbling in this. Through a mutual friend, I met Michael Medina, who is a bassist, percussionist, producer, recording engineer, everything, one of those multi-talented men. And we started playing together about 20 years ago, and we've been recording. We have 10 CDs out and playing and performing, etc. And it's just been a great experience, and all of it is sort of through, it's jazz-based. So it's been fun, and I was kind of the low kid on the totem pole, and everyone was so patient with me and helpful, and I would listen to what they were doing and try and emulate and try and learn from them, and I still am, which I think is the most fun about this, what I'm doing, because it's never boring. Mm-hmm. With classical music, you read the music, you do exactly what's written. I have no music. I make it up on the spot.
Improvisation,
right, with not only with solos but also with arranging. Concerts, they're never the same twice, never. The instruments and the musicians are never the same. Even if you don't pursue being a heavy-duty jazzer and wanting to improv all that time, knowing how to do it can only make you a better musician. It's a win-win situation. I can't stress it enough. It's just part of life. I mean, we all improvise in life, in everything we do. That's how we survive. And if you can do that on the instrument that you know and you love, it just really makes it fun and challenging, always, always.
Well, now, Cindy, let's talk a little bit about what just happened. You just won an award recently with the American Harp Society Dallas chapter. So tell us about that piece.
They had a contest last year to promote the harp as a solo instrument, and that was so successful that they did it again. So this was the second competition that they had. I submitted a piece and I won honorable mention. It was quite an honor. I was very thrilled and honored for harpists to recognize my work in this way. Like every harpist, we are all ambassadors for this instrument because it is unique, and a lot of people don't know anything about it. And the more people learn about it, the better it is for everybody. And the piece was called Carrillon Wave, and it was, I don't know, when I would go, well, I still do it, is when I hear melodic segments of just something, even from a jazz solo or a pop tune or a little bitty motif of some kind.
Right.
I make a mental note or I write it down or do something, and then I'll come back to it and kind of expand on it. And this is what happened. I was playing a gig somewhere, and one of my dear friends, his name is Andy Timmons, he's an incredible guitarist, really talented gentleman. He played this little riff, and it stuck with me for many years. And so finally I said, you know what? I'm going to take this and expand it and create a piece with this, and this is how Carrillon Wave came to be. I'm sure you've talked to many composers, and it seems to be that, at least for me, is sometimes it's difficult and it's a labor and it takes time and you work hard and you work it and you work it and you work it. But then on the flip side, some pieces just come to you almost in your sleep as if they're already written. And this one luckily just came to me. The chords, the music, the melody, everything just sort of flowed, and it was I wrote it very quickly. I love this instrument so much that I just really love spreading the word about it, and people just love it so much. When I play for festivals and tour and do workshops and all that sort of stuff all over the place, it's nothing but positive. The harp is such a beautiful sound anyway, but to spread it around even more is just so important, I think. Composition is just a really great avenue, a path that I'm taking right now that I'm loving. You know, for the harp ensemble, I've been writing music, and I've been taking classical music and adapting it in a jazz way. The Ravel's Introduction and Allegro I created for harp ensemble.
I can't believe you did that.
It was great. My teacher at UT, Gail Barrington, was such a motivator in my life because I'd never touched a harp, and she got me to the point where I received a master's in harp from UT, and I was the first one to do that.
Wow, Cindy.
I was so motivated. I just was so passionate about it. And so for her memorial service, I chose, instead of to play that piece as my tribute to her that I played for my master's recital, I created a jazz version. And she loved what I did in the jazz world, and she really supported me. I want to do more of that. You know, people love classical music. I love classical music, and I love jazz. So why not put them together, right? That's kind of the path I'm going.
Well, let's listen now to the two sides of Cindy Horstman. First, we're going to hear the Carrillon Wave, the piece she talked about that won honorable mention at the Dallas chapter of the American Harp Society's composition contest. And then we're going to hear a piece that she wrote and is performing with her two-tone duo partner, Michael Medina, also Andy Timmons, called Angelica. Music of my guest, local composer and harpist Cindy Horstman. If you'd like to know more about the American Harp Society Dallas chapter, go to dallasharpsociety.org. They have an upcoming concert if you're into the harp thing like I am. Logan Walters Harp Duo will be performing on the 17th at 3 p.m. at the J. Eric Johnson Central Library, the first floor auditorium at 1515 Young Street in Dallas. Remember, the Classic Cafe is brought to you every Saturday morning by Metroplex Piano and the Crow Collection of Asian Art. I want to thank all of my guests this morning. Wish everyone a blessed Easter weekend.